It's an honour to be here today to be able to share my story with you. The first time I'd ever heard of antibiotic resistance or superbugs must have been about 10 years ago. There was an outbreak of MRSA in our local hospital, but I didn't fully register the severity of it at the time, and I certainly didn't think such bugs would make such an impact on my life the way it has. People can hear antibiotics will stop working in the future and that it will kill more than cancer by 2050, or that there is antibiotics in the animals we eat. But unless we take action now, people like me who didn't register the severity of it will learn the harder way, sooner than they think, like me and my family had to. Since I was a little girl, I was always getting flare-ups of cystitis. I remember my mum used to give me £1 if I downed a pint of water. We would go to the doctors and I'd get given antibiotics. Sometimes they didn't help at all. I remember when I was about 11, we noticed that the antibiotic they would normally prescribe me wasn't working. And unfortunately, over the years, the doctor hadn't been sending my urine off to culture in the lab. So when they did, it was coming back most of the time that I didn't have an infection at all. And other times, I'd be admitted to hospital because the infection got into my kidneys. This was when the investigation into my pain started. Over the years, I had minor operations, countless kidney scans, and even an MRI. The results concluded that I had kidney reflux. They also diagnosed me with PBS, which is a painful bladder syndrome. The kidney reflux means I'm more susceptible to a urinary tract infection, and the painful bladder syndrome would mean explaining the pain when there's no infection present. Within the investigation process, I had my urine sent for culture as it became quite unwell. My doctor rang me and told me to come in. She said the results have shown that I had a superbug. It was called ESBL E. coli. She admitted me to hospital straight away and I was put in the side room. At this point, I didn't understand the severity of what was happening. I was just thinking, I've got another infection, I'll have some antibiotics and be on my way. It wasn't until the doctors and nurses came into my room in gowns and gloves I became very unwell, is when I realised. The doctors explained that this superbug was hard to treat and a lot of antibiotics wouldn't be able to get rid of it. After 2 weeks in hospital, a strong, rare antibiotic worked and I was able to get rid of the superbug, but I was one of the lucky ones. Unfortunately, it didn't stop there. Over the years, I had about 6 attacks of ESBL and countless different infections, all highly resistant to treatment. When I became pregnant, this was when living with something like antibiotic resistance really took its toll. I had an attack of ESBL within my first trimester. They told me at the hospital that the antibiotics they were going to give me had never been given to a pregnant woman before, and they were unsure the effects it may have on my baby. Being pregnant for the first time is scary for any woman, but not being told that sent me to a place I didn't even know existed. If I didn't have the antibiotic, I would not have a chance to get rid of this infection. So my partner and I decided that taking the antibiotic was the best option. We had a scan whilst I was at the hospital and thank God our baby was doing fine. The rest of the pregnancy was a bit of a blur. I was constantly sending off my urine, being admitted to hospital and having consultations and scans every week. In my 3rd trimester, I was told I had a strep B infection in my urine. This infection has been known to cause harm to the baby during birth, and no surprise, I was resistant to the antibiotic that would normally treat mothers with this infection. Because of other complications, we were lucky if we got to 35 weeks. Working with a microbiologist at the hospital, our consultant had a 3rd-line antibiotic on standby in case I went into labour early. I was also told that my baby would be given antibiotics as a precaution. Despite all the odds against us, on the 23rd of the 7th, 2013, our baby boy, Emerson Jack Blackwell, was born safely via a planned C-section at 38 weeks. This was decided the safest option for us. This was the scariest moment I've had since being told I was antibiotic-resistant infection. Not only could this potentially kill me, it could have harmed my newborn son. Since becoming a mum, I look at the world completely differently. My son is eating meat that has antibiotics in it. He has an ear infection or a cough, and they give him antibiotics. I worry for the future generation and how it's going to affect them. I'm only 24, and I've been resistant to antibiotics for nearly 8 years now. The more I get infections mean the more I take antibiotics, what will only mean resulting in me building up a resistance to them. Unless new antibiotics are made, The day that an infection comes back saying resistant to all is inevitable for me. What is really scary is that we don't know how or why I got this superbug to begin with. It could have been me taking antibiotics when I didn't have an infection, or I could have caught it during the minor operations during the investigation into my pain. All we know is that there's no cure. My amazing fiancé Ben wanted to raise money for this cause by doing a charity run. This is when we found Antibiotic Research UK. I didn't even know that people out there wanted to make new antibiotics. Knowing that what they are doing to prevent antibiotic resistance has been life-changing for me. My vision for the future has always been inevitable. We're going to run out sooner or later. But Antibiotic Research UK, my family and friends have given me a new vision for the future to be a positive one. I'm extremely lucky to have the support around me that I do, and I have filled me with a new sense of hope for my future. So now I can only hope that new antibiotics are made. I can only hope that our next generation does not get affected like it is predicted. I can only hope that GPs hand out antibiotics to infection only, and I can only hope that outbreaks of superbugs do not affect my family, friends and children. I can only hope that nobody in this room has to go through being resistant to antibiotics. But most of all, I hope that Antibiotic Research UK and people like Colin Garner achieve everything they want to and more. Yes, awareness of superbugs and resistance is critical, but I also believe that people behind the scenes that are making this happen, the people that are raising awareness and giving people like me hope, should know they are deeply appreciated. So thank you again, Colin, and everyone at Antibiotic Research UK. Thank you for giving me and my family hope. Yeah.